It was Friday the 13th, and all through the night, I searched for movies filled with horror and fright. As a horror movie junkie, I don't scare easy. Let's see if these four movies will actually appease me.
I know I'm corny. Hello, beautiful people. Uh, Today is Friday the 13th, and I love horror movies, so I am going to be spending my night watching horror movies, predominantly from 2024 and 2023, trying to find an actual good horror movie. Because for me, since I've been watching them since I was a very small child, it's very hard for me to find actual good horror movies. So I will be taking the time to watch like maybe 3 or 4 of them tonight and seeing and rating them, seeing what I feel like is the best. So I will come back tomorrow and let you know what I found, what movies I watch, what I rate them, and what I recommend them. All right, so bye. Hello, and I am back. It is Saturday morning. It's almost afternoon. I went to go play some pickleball, and then I had to actually rewatch one of the movies because I fell asleep because I'm a little old. But yeah, so the movies I ended up watching were Abigail, Long Legs, Late Night with the Devil, and Deliverance. So, in that order. So, let me go ahead and give my little review. There might be a little bit of like spoilers, I guess, but I'm not trying to do like a full explanation of the movie. But all right, so Abigail. So Abigail was about these 6 criminals that are hired to kidnap a little girl and hold her for ransom at a different house overnight. Like, later they start getting picked off and they find out that this little girl is actually a vampire and she's just using them for like a hunting game and killing them. I like the movie. To me, it was kind of like a horror comedy. I like vampire things, so to see like a little kid vampire going around like picking criminals off is funny to me. At first, I didn't really think it was a rated R movie, or I didn't remember it was a rated R movie because the first two attacks weren't seen. You just saw the aftermaths of it. So I was just like, is this a rated R movie? And then afterwards, you started seeing the actual attacks and the blood and stuff. But yeah, I liked it. It was a good start. Had some action, had a vampires. Those are my, like, vampires and zombies are like my favorite 2 things for horror movies. Like, I like ghosts and demonic things as well, and some like slaughter type stuff, but those are like my favorite. So yeah, I enjoyed it. I'd watch it again. Cool on my end. Nothing, I mean, I wouldn't take it too serious. Again, I consider it like a horror comedy because I did giggle at a couple things. But that's just me. I do have a silly sense of humor. All right, so the next movie I watched was Long Legs. And this had Nicolas Cage in it. I didn't know anything about this movie when I picked it. I just was like trying to pick different movies to watch. And I went to YouTube real quick to look at a preview, and I was like, sure, I'll go ahead and watch this movie. So this movie was about like an awkward FBI agent that is recruited because of her like psychic abilities. They recruited her because they're trying to find a serial killer that has been like at large for decades, somehow managing to get fathers to kill their families and then unalive themselves without that person, that serial killer, being in the room or in the house at all, from what they see. And this has been happening for decades. And so she is recruited because of her psychic abilities, but really she's just like very observant. When you're watching the movie, you kind of see signs that like maybe she might be on a spectrum, and that's the reason why she's like really good at paying attention to details and, you know, good at scrambling or unscrambling the code that the serial killer is leaving behind with these notes. It never, I don't think it ever says anything about her being on the spectrum. That's just kind of like my thoughts, like, oh, she kind of, that's the type of character that is being portrayed, which is it's kind of cool because it shows other people on the spectrum working with neurotypical people. Again, that is just my thought process of like the way she acts. So, but for me, the movie was a lot slower. My eyelids were definitely getting heavy. It was probably like 8 or 9 around this time, and I am kind of like an old soul, so I was already like the movie being slow, and it's getting later till it's a time where I normally am asleep because I have to be to work or get up to work early. I definitely was falling asleep. The way the previews were portraying this movie was like it's like the greatest horror movie of 2024, and I don't agree with that. It wasn't horrible. I didn't like want to turn it off, but it definitely made me fall asleep. There were definitely like it wasn't my favorite pick out of all the movies, so it was very slow. I fell asleep on it, but it wasn't horrible. It's more of like a horror suspense type movie. Yeah. But yeah, so that's for Long Legs. Now on to the next movie. The next movie was Late Night with the Devil. This movie was about a late night host, like a late night host show, and he is like constantly trying to get the #1 spot. In the beginning of the movie, they talk about how he's the late night host and he's like the #2 spot, and he's always right under the #1 show for late night shows. And at some point they mentioned like he goes to some type of like famous camp. I forgot what the camp was called, but they mentioned that they do seances and stuff, or they think that's like cultish. And then they bring up like the next frame, they bring up like his wife all of a sudden has cancer. She has lung cancer even though she's never smoked anything. Now people do get lung cancer even though they've never actually smoked, but it was like immediately like, you sacrificed your wife for some ratings? That's where my mind went to. It doesn't say that, but that's the immediate thought that's where my immediate thought went to, is you sacrificed your wife for some ratings on a show. So after that, she comes on a show. I guess they thought that was gonna be his #1 rating night. Like he finally bypassed the top show. He doesn't. And so he takes a few months off and he comes back, and the show that the episode you're seeing, the live episode you're seeing, is like a horror themed or Halloween themed episode where the host brings out mediums to talk to spirits. There's like a live audience. The show is set in like I don't know what year, like 70s or something like that. So like the color is a little bit off. It's not the same setup as like nowadays. Every time they're actually doing the live show and the cameras are running, the scene is in color. Every time they go to break, the scene switches to black and white. So you know when they're actually live and the cameras are running and when they're on a break. Yeah, so he brings on mediums that can talk to spirits, and he also brings on a skeptic that can like, oh, this is how they're doing it. They're just playing you, blah, blah, blah. And then, yeah, it just ends up turning on him. So that night, at the end, that night might have been his, he might have actually become #1 that night at a very big cost. So that movie was pretty decent. I'd watch it again. I liked it. It wasn't like, it was a cool setup. So I enjoyed the acting, I guess, and everything. The last movie I watched, was The Deliverance. Okay, this movie was about like an alcoholic, biracial, angry mother that has 3 kids. She just moved into a house, and her sick mom, who has cancer, moved with her so that she can take care of her. And once they move into this house, these possessions start happening. Her kids start acting really weird. All, possessions. But it's not like I've never seen this dynamic before, but you can see the love-hate relationship that she has with her mom. She's a very angry person. The mother is a very angry person. So like and you can see that she gets that from her grandmother. I mean, from her mom, who treated her like that when she was younger. And so now she's kind of doing it to her kids. But the grandma is sick again. She has cancer. And she's done like, I wouldn't say 180, because you can still see remnants of like her past self come out during certain times of a movie. But she's changed a lot because she's now going to church now that she's like very, very sick. And you can see them kind of like button heads. They have that love-hate relationship. Like, you love her mom, but she treated you badly in growing up, and they still have like these button head type things. But you can see the moments of where they show love with each other. Yeah, the mom is an alcoholic. She is constantly drinking because she's going through a hard time, and that's how she is trying to cope with it. She hits her kids a couple times, but at the same time, she does try to protect her kids. It's like a weird dynamic, but I can't say I've like never really seen it. But yeah, I fell asleep during this movie mainly because at that point I think it was like 11 or something like that, and I was already tired, specifically from long legs. And so I had to, after I was done and everything this morning, I came back and rewatched the movie so I can come back and do the review. It wasn't a bad movie. I don't really believe, like, if you haven't been a church-going person and you didn't believe in Jesus and all that, like, as you're fighting a demon, all of a sudden you would just start believing. I feel like something like this happening to me, like if I wasn't a religious person and then all of a sudden I am going through possessions and my kids are being possessed and everything, I would probably believe even less in Jesus at that point. All the things, all the horrible people in the world, and you're possessing me and my kids. I don't know, that's probably how I would feel about it. But when you are fighting for your kids, you would do anything, and maybe her mind was like, I need to believe, or I will lose myself and my kids, and I can't have that happen. So the love for your kids, I guess, will get you to do anything. And that is a true, I feel like it's a true statement for, you know, any parent that actually really loves their kids. So I guess, but yeah, it didn't really paint that mom in a good light at all. But it wouldn't, if everything was all like cookies and cakes during a movie, it wouldn't be that interesting, I guess. So as far as rating, I would say from best to worst rating for me, I would say Abigail first, Late Night with the Devil second, Deliverance third, and then Long Legs fourth. Yeah, I would go with that as my rating from best to worst. So yeah, it was cool watching horror movies for the night. It's very rare that I watch movies these days, so carving out a night specifically to watch movies was cool. So I didn't mind it. Got a chance to catch up on some movies that have been coming through for 2024. And we'll see what happens in October, because I'm definitely going to be watching some more horror movies, because again, my favorite. But yeah, those are my ratings. That's all I have to say. Thanks for watching.